On this episode of Locked On Angels, the Angels made a big decision this last weekend regarding Patrick Sandoval. We're going to share what they did and if it was a positive move in the right direction. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to John and I, the Super Halo Bros, for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the First Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we've been Angel fans our whole lives, and we're here talking Angels baseball 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, every single weekday, till about mid-December. We'll drop down to 3 episodes a week, then we'll ramp back up before spring training. On today's show, the Halos non-tendered 4 players over the weekend. There was a lot of non-tendering going on here, Mike, this past weekend among MLB teams. Let's get into the one that stands out the most, I think, Patrick Sandoval. Let's talk about it.
He's the big name. He's a free agent now, and the Angels still can negotiate with him and sign a new, cheaper deal. He would have made around $6 million, still under arbitration for 2 more years, around $6 million. But obviously, because of his surgery, because of his injury, he's not going to play until 2026. He has 2 years of team control left. So the Angels, if they wanted to renegotiate, they could get him at a cheaper deal and bring him back. They probably would sign him to maybe a 2-year deal and bring him back. But this move puts the Halos, as of this weekend, the 40-man roster is at 38 currently, so 2 spots are open. John, question for you in regards to Patrick Sandoval. Does this prove something that I've been feeling since the beginning of the year, and we argued about it, and you, I think, agreed with me? Does this prove that Patrick Sandoval's opening day start last season was a kind gesture and not because he earned it?
I think you're right about that. He definitely didn't earn that opening day start, but I would also say it's all right, if you are as good as you think you are, as you say you are, as you feel that you are, then go out there and prove it. And prove it he did not, Mike. And so they gave him the opening day nod. Should have went to somebody else. Obviously, you think about the season Tyler Anderson had. He was coming off the bad 2023. Feels like he could have done Detmers in that situation, because Detmers got off to a great start.
That's when he was
2024, but then he fell off too.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to this. It all comes down to, the negotiating a new contract. They can do that. They can certainly do that. Maybe you pay him $1 million in the year that he's not playing, and then you backload that contract, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, or whatnot. You can do that.
Yeah.
But here's what really stands out to me, Mike. Griffin Canning, who was non-tendered by the Braves, becomes a free agent as well. And, there was a question from everydayers and kind of from Angel fans all over, wondering why the Braves would make this trade. They said, they'll probably make Griffin Canning an ace. They'll turn him into something good. And then they didn't tender him a contract. So essentially they were able to dump the salary of Jorge Soler, which they didn't need. They didn't need him as a player because they have a full roster, especially in the DH spot and in the outfield. They have Marcell Ozuna there. They've got Jared Kelenic in left. Acuna Jr.'s coming back. So hear me when I say, like I said, the Angels could still do something with Patrick Sandoval. But with Canning gone and Sandy not given a contract, and then the Braves don't give Canning a contract, is this the Halos moving on from pitchers who have been around for a long time, trying to make something of them? Is this finally saying, like, all right, we're done? What do you say?
Yeah, I think it is, because you look at somebody like a Griffin Canning and you look at somebody like a Patrick Sandoval, they're attractive from a distance. Like 80 miles an hour, 80 miles away, right? And so they're attractive from a distance. And you go, well, Sandoval had a couple of great years. If you go back a couple of years, and Canning had a couple of great years, not spectacular, but a couple of good years. And you look at them and you're like, yeah, these guys are guys that maybe if we could just get right, if we could get their arm slot right, if we could get their head right. The Angels have been working with these guys for a really long time. And I know that we've had a lot of discussion about Matt Wise, and we've had a lot of discussion about the system that they were in. And honestly, all of the critique and the criticism that comes because of the system is duly noted and is justified.
Right.
But here's what's really interesting about this. We have a new system in place, only been in place for a year. We have a guy in Barry Enright who seems to know what he's doing. He's spoken to us through direct messages a couple of times, hasn't given us too much specifics, but has given us enough that has indicated like this guy's working really hard with these pitchers.
Yeah.
And John, this letting go of Sandoval and not tendering him a contract and then trading Griffin Canning away and then Canning not getting a contract with the Braves, that shows me that these guys were valued way higher by the Angels for a lot longer than most, if not all, other teams in baseball. And isn't that the case?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that always the case with the Angels? They have guys that they think are fantastic. They have guys that they fall in love with, and they don't want to DFA them or they don't want to non-tender a contract because they're afraid somebody else is going to get them. This is no disrespect to Austin Warren. But remember when Austin Warren was sent through the waivers and everybody was like, if we send him through the waivers, what's going to happen? Nobody selected him. Nobody picked him up. And then the Angels got him back. Same thing with Jose Suarez. They had to DFA, send him down through waivers to the minor leagues. Nobody claimed him. And there were rumors that the Angels thought somebody would claim him. And so this is just an indication of what a terrible system the Angels had, right? But it's also an indication of somebody like Barry Enright, who seems to know what he's doing, has finally, in 1 year, got the Angels to go, yeah, you know what? These guys right now are unfixable, and we don't have the time. We have the patience. And I think that that's really what this says, John. We don't have the time, nor do we have the patience to fix these guys because we want to be competitive. We have these young guys that are figuring some things out. When they come up, they're not great. They go back to the minors, figure it out. Jack Kahanowitz is an example of that. And then suddenly he's great. Ben Joyce goes down, learns a new pitch, comes back up. Now he's fantastic. And I think that they're at a place where Barry Enright's like, I can't make the food, heat the food, put it on the plate for you, and then feed it to you, right? I need you to feed yourself. And Patrick Sandoval and Griffin Canning are two guys that just could not grasp a hold of the strategy of throw first pitch strikes, of the strategy of, hey, let's not throw your fastball because it sucks. Let's throw a different pitch. Just seems like they were not able to do any of that stuff. So I think this is more of an indication of not that the Angels just had a sucky process in years past. I think it's an indication of they're like, no, our process is better and we're not wasting our time anymore with these guys.
Look, getting Patrick Sandoval when they got him 2019, I want to say, you look at that situation and you're like, okay, we get this young pitcher, 24 years old. This is exciting. And then you bring him into the broken Angel system that was at that period of time where, you just moved on from Mike Scioscia, you had Brad Ausmus, and then, you get a pitching coach that you're really excited about, and then he gets himself fired because he's an idiot behind the scenes, right? And so then they give the job to Matt Wise, didn't bother making a change there. So yes, this is an organizational failure on the part of the Angels. And at this point, like you said, what's the point in giving them more time to cook, more time to develop, all of that sort of thing? And it tells me that they must be really excited about who they acquired at the deadline, who they've been able to draft. And they're saying, you know what? It's not that Canning or Sandoval are lost causes in terms of baseball, but maybe just here. And that's not anything to do with them. It's we can't get them right. And so this is waving the white flag in that regard. Now, that does bring me to another part of this question for you is, what about Reed Detmers is different other than age with Canning and Sandoval, who are both 28, 29? What's different about Reed Detmers that you would keep him around, or is this an indication that they move him over the offseason?
It's easier to move Sandoval and it's easier to move Canning. Canning because he's got 1 year left and you tender a contract or you don't. Sandoval, he's injured, so you're not even going to have him play this year. So you're investing in someone that is not even going to play this year.
Right.
Reed Detmers has time.
Yeah.
He's got time. Now, if he doesn't figure it out this year, then I could see him in a situation where he might find himself not tendered a contract. But remember, they added an extra year to team control because he was in the minor leagues. And so I think that with Reed, they're taking a calculated risk, a wise risk, because I think that Reed is fixable. And I think that Barry Enright believes that he's fixable. He said to us privately, we got to get Reed right. And so I think that he's working on that. I think with Sandoval, I think with Canning, they just at some point were not able to adopt the strategy. They were not able to get it in their heart, get it in their mind. It was the same thing all the time, every start. We're always worried about first inning home runs with Canning. With Sandoval, it's always ball one. It's always 2-0, right? And so it's like, come on, you guys. I think with Reed Detmers, they got an extra year. And I think with Reed Detmers, we had him in the minor leagues for a while to work on some stuff. I know what was communicated by Reed wasn't great. I didn't have to go down there. I didn't know, right? Like, and so, but I think that this off season, they're going to work, spend some time, develop him. And because they still have some time and because he's young, I think that this is a calculated risk to see what they can do with this guy in this season right now.
There's a great tweet from Victor Rojas over the weekend. He was talking about, Sandoval, Canning, said they were never capable of working deep into games.
Right.
Everything was max effort with deep counts, which usually resulted in an early hook. There's promise, and then there's performance. Waited too long to move to maximize the return. I think that says a lot about the state of the Angels pitching, but also pitching in general in this day and age. Max effort, deep counts, all that stuff. And that's the secret sauce you have to unlock there is how do you pitch efficiently? And I think you look at guys like Jared Weaver, who has a lot to say about pitching this day and age. He wasn't max effort all the time, every single pitch, every single toss. It was always a matter of being strategic about it. We talk about, we got to watch Shohei Ohtani on the mound all those years, and he wasn't throwing 101 on the fastball first pitch. He saved it for when he's like, you know what? I need to ramp it up right here and blow this by this guy, and I'm going to throw 101 right now, and he would get the K. And so there's something to be said about max effort constantly, all the time, always, and how that's affecting starting pitching in the league. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, who was non-tendered from other teams, and should the Halos consider signing any of those players? Well, we got a good little list here. Some names jump out at Mike and I. We'll talk about that coming right up.
Hey, we got a new everydayer at Locked On Angels. It's Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality, John, and the taste of Omaha Steaks.
We talked about non-tender. Well, you're going to want to tenderize your Omaha Steaks, if you will.
Don't do it. So this year, you can skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, because you're a listener to this show, you're going to get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off just by putting in the promo code MLB. 5 generations of experience. Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience, and their gifting experts have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99, from legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Oh, they have desserts too? This is fantastic. Save 50% off site-wide, their entire website, on this cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners, they get an extra $30 off with our promo code MLB and a $30 reward card when you shop early. So that means as soon as the show's over, go to omahasteaks.com. That's OMAHA steaks.com and get a $30 off reward with our promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right, we just got through talking about Patrick Sandoval, kind of the big name, not tendered a contract over the weekend. And a little bit of a surprise, Mike, because yes, he did have 2 years of control left. The hang up there was the Tommy John surgery. Probably not going to pitch in 2025. If he did, it would be September at the latest, right? And so you're not going to want to spend $6 million on a guy who's not going to play for you. $6 million that could go somewhere else, right? Somewhere else, maybe an actual ace that the Angels could sign. We're still holding out hope that somebody wants to pitch here, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
But the Angels weren't the only ones to non-tender a player over the weekend, because it was the deadline to tender a contract to everybody who was up for arbitration. And so there's a strong list here of names you probably know, names you might not know, but at the same time, they're names you might want to know, especially when it comes to the Angels. Mike, right off the bat, I was shocked to see this. And this was from the Washington Nationals. Their closer this season, Kyle Finnegan, had 38 saves. And you want to know why Kyle Finnegan caught my attention? It's because when I drafted Edwin Diaz to be my closer, I had somebody else as a closer. So I had two closers. Diaz got demoted, and then I ended up trading him. But I picked up Kyle Finnegan because he was available in my 10-team league, and he cooked the rest of the way. In fact, what's crazy here is that the Nationals did not trade him at the deadline, even though he was a hot commodity. Easily could have gone to another team. They did trade their setup guy. I forget his name off the top of my head, but they made one move, but they kept Kyle Finnegan. Now, Finnegan's probably owed $8-9 million this season in arbitration, but they let him go. They let him walk. And so he's a free agent. Mike, he's about to get paid, in my opinion. And that's definitely, man, if you want to lock down the back of that bullpen, I know that maybe he's got some fastball issues. I did see some great insight from Lance Brozdowski, who does a ton of great baseball pitching stuff. But you get Kyle Finnegan at the back of your bullpen, and then Robert Stevenson comes back, and you have Ben Joyce back there as well. You got a really solid back of the bullpen, in my opinion. So go get me a Finny. Get me Finnegan, man. I'm all in.
All-star pitcher from last year. That was the first guy you commented on Twitter. You just put the eyes in and said, whoa.
I said, excuse me?
Yeah, he's available. Another closer, John, that may not cost as much, but maybe a bit of a risk, is Jordan Romano from Blue Jays, 31-year-old closer. He was coming off a really bad season. He was injured twice with right elbow issues. He eventually went through arthroscopic surgery for his right elbow impingement, is what the Blue Jays said. So he's available, but there is a risk with him. I think if it's between Romano and Finnegan, I think you go in the Finnegan direction. But the other conversation that I think the Angels need to have is infielders, right? Like, who is available in the infield? And one name that stands out to me is from the Colorado Rockies. Brendan Rodgers, John, had an OPS over 700. He had double digits in home runs. He hit around 260, low, high, like 267, I think it was. Somebody that can play multiple positions, second, third base. I know he's not somebody that you're excited about, but he could be somebody that fills in that second base slot. And I know that we have Kevin Newman as well, but it's somebody that would give somebody like a Rengifo an opportunity to play third base full time. And then you're not reliant upon our good buddy Rendon playing there, right? Because you just don't know how much time he's actually going to put in. But he's somebody that's an interesting bat for the Angels that they could bring in. Defensive metrics, kind of subpar, kind of neutral. So he's not super incredible at second base. But again, with Zach Neto missing at least all indications are the first start of the season, Brendan Rodgers could be somebody that they could bring in. I know we've talked about Hassan Kim, but he's injured and he would take some time. We talked about Hai-Song Kim, and he was somebody that could come right in, right? And so when you look at some of these guys, it would probably be a cheaper direction for the Angels to go and get a Brendan Rodgers and then potentially save that resource for a starter, I think 2 starters to really make this starting rotation strong and viable in 2025.
Okay, I'm going back to the bullpen here because somebody did ask us, I believe it was Nick Vlahakis, everydayer who tunes in. I think he reached out to us on Twitter. Jacob Webb, Mike, was non-tendered a contract.
Poor guy.
And I know, right?
He performs well, but not like well enough, right?
Well, look, he 2-5, a 3.02 ERA in 60 games, even converted 2 saves for the Orioles this season. So that's an interesting name. I mean, it was a bummer that we let him walk away when we did. Certainly could have used him for sure. Mike, I'm going to throw an infielder name at you. How about Patrick Wisdom from the Cubbies, who in the past has been a pretty solid slugger for the Chicago Cubs.
And he plays third base, right?
And he plays third base. Now, here's the thing. I'm looking at the plate discipline numbers here on FanGraphs.
A lot of strikeouts.
And swing and strike. Oh boy, just a lot of strikeouts for
John. You're watching in real time. John changed his mind.
Well, I mean, look, it's like that's what you get with a slugger, but man, it just looking at, let's see, zone contact. 84.2. That's not terrible. Contact 71.2%. So yeah, real time. This is happening here. But let me look at his third base numbers. And most recently, didn't get into a lot of games at third base this season. That's interesting. Just 92 innings. Looks like he roamed the outfield a little bit more. No, I guess not. He just didn't have a lot of time on the Cubs this year. They didn't need him.
Yeah.
But in the past, he has been, a somewhat good defender. It doesn't, I mean, I don't know, man. 962 on third base, 948 fielding percentage, 927. And now you're seeing the innings shrink as I'm going over this here. So I don't know. Do you trust a Ron Washington to get him right? And do you trust a Johnny Washington to get the bat right? And I actually expand that question to a lot of these guys who are available.
Yeah.
Is do you trust the coaching staff to get these right? What do you say?
I would rather go with a Brendan Rodgers than a Patrick Wisdom because Rodgers has a bit better contact and a higher OPS. I think because he's also an infielder, and then it gives Rengifo it gives him a place to go and play at third base. And I think what you need is not necessarily a lot of power. I think what you need is guys that can turn this lineup over with Jorge Soler and then potentially Mike Trout coming back. You have a lot of power in those two guys and don't need to necessarily have more. I think Logan O'Hoppe is going to hit for more power when Zach Neto gets back. I think he'll continue to be a strong bat for the Angels. And so you don't necessarily need more home runs in this lineup. You need contact. You need hitters. And so these names that we're throwing out there are cheap solutions. It feels like Angel solutions, right? I just wonder if going in a Patrick Wisdom direction might cause you to be a bit frustrated because you end up with a guy who's barely hitting 200, maybe has 25 home runs, but 67 RBIs and isn't coming through for you when you need him to come through.
Oh, he's definitely not getting 25 home runs. That's for sure. One last name, and I'm going to make you laugh here. Can we get Ramon Laureano so that he doesn't end up
yes, right,
on the Astros and then ruining our lives with every play he makes in the outfield? I mean, good grief, man. That guy is just a pain in the butt. Even when he is in a different division, a different league, in the National League, and we play the Braves, there he is doing Ramon Laureano things.
He's a Hall of Famer against the Angels, and he's not a great player against every other Major League Baseball team, right?
That's basically how it comes down to. It's you can be a superstar against the Angels if you're Ramon Laureano. It doesn't matter where you play or who you're playing, as long as it's Laureano against the Angels. Get ready to roll your eyes.
I would make a bet on FanDuel that Laureano would tear us up if he was playing against us. If he was on our team, he probably wouldn't tear it up at
No.
all. So I'm going to look on FanDuel right now to see if that's a bet. FanDuel is a sponsor of this show. They're America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So if you bet on Ramon Laureano hitting a home run against the Angels, you're going to win because that guy always tears us up. FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything that you need in the place that you need it, right as you're looking at all the stats, as you're looking at the live play-by-play. All of the bets are there as well. And since it's NFL season, that's the primary season happening right now, you can bet on any NFL game and any NFL play, any player, any stats. Just go to FanDuel.com and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch, never waste a moment, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, last bit of news from over the weekend, and there was a trade, Mike, a trade that actually has something to do with the Angels because the Royals made a deal with Cincinnati. They traded Brady Singer to Cincinnati for second baseman Jonathan India and Joey Weimer. Be careful of your spell check when you write that name, everybody. So the Royals did a little 1-for-2 swap there. Reds get Brady Singer. India and Weimer come back to Kansas City. Singer was a name that had come up in trade talks for Taylor Ward. Instead, he's going to the Reds again for 2 players. Here is where my hangup was, is you had interest in Taylor Ward and all the reports where Kansas City is really interested in bringing him in, but they're also interested in bringing in Jonathan India. They're willing to give up Singer. And I said, you know what? Strike while the iron's hot. If you have trade interest in Taylor Ward, then you entertain that trade until the cows come home, right? So instead, the Reds get Brady Singer and the Royals will get Jonathan India and Joey Weimer. Weimer's not necessarily going to be a starting outfielder, so maybe there's a potential for the Royals to still need a Taylor Ward, but at this point, I think that you could, kind of check that one off. Maybe we really hammer home our Alec Boehm for Taylor Ward trade for the rest of the offseason. But let me put it this way. If the Halos were to make this trade for Brady Singer, who would have gone to Kansas City? What do you say?
Well, I think that we have to first look at Jonathan India and Taylor Ward as a 1-for-1. I know that some might say that Ward's better, some might say that India is better. We've actually talked about, and we spoke with Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds last year about a potential Taylor Ward trade and would India come over, and that might have been a good move for the Angels, him at second base. And so looking at the numbers and looking at their value, I think they're both of equal value at some level. So Jonathan India, Taylor Ward, equal value. So the second piece of the trade then would be who is Joey Weimer? And Weimer is a 25-year-old outfielder, played for the Brewers in 2023, posted a 645 OPS with a 75 OPS plus, had 13 home runs that season. 2024, only 21 games for him, didn't produce much, had a 339 OPS. He is under team control until 2029, John, and is ARB eligible in 2026. So who compares? Again, 1-for-1, Taylor Ward, Jonathan India. So looking at the Angels roster as it currently sits, major league, minor league, there's really a couple of names that might stand out. I think the most attractive name in comparing him to Joey Weimer would be Gustavo Campero. Gustavo has similar minor league stats, similar makeup, maybe not as much pop as Weimer has, but Gustavo has kind of that similarity. If the Angels made this trade, it would have cost them Taylor Ward and Campero. There's also another name out there that's similar, but you're going to laugh when I say this. Cole Tucker is another name. And he's somebody that obviously hasn't performed at the major league level, but he has similar makeup, similar minor league numbers as Joey Weimer.
Okay.
The big question, John, is did the Halos miss out on somebody like Brady Singer for Taylor Ward and another player?
Well, if you look at, Singer is going to help your rotation. I know that he's been hit and miss. I know that he's had his struggles. 2022 was a good year for Brady Singer, and this past year was a good Brady Singer year as well. But 2020, 21, and 23 were not great for Brady Singer. And so Yes, I will say that they missed out in not getting Brady Singer, right? Because he automatically makes this rotation more reliable, better, all of the above. So yes, they did miss out. But what I will say is he's 28 years old, 2 years of control. You'd have to give him an extension if you wanted to make this trade worthwhile. So there's a lot of caveats that come with bringing Brady Singer into your organization. Now, have we made arguments for other guys who, are only here for the next 2 years? Yes. Alec Boehm would be a 2-year guy unless they were able to extend him as well. So I think what it all boils down to here, Mike, is that if the Angels have an opportunity to bring somebody in who helps turn the narrative around on this team over the course of 2025, and they go from who they are now to how we talk about the Royals now, because last year, I mean, I know they were rebuilding, but last year, who's going to play for the Royals? Who's going to come there? Who's going to, all that nonsense. And so I am looking for guys who can help turn the narrative around on this team to make them a more attractive franchise to be here. That said, I wonder if we are getting to a point where Taylor Ward needs to be traded for future pieces and not somebody that, is only going to be around 1 or 2 years. But would Taylor Ward yield you any significant minor league pieces that you can factor into the future? That's what I would like to see. I think that's the responsible thing to do. At the same time, how valuable are those pieces for Taylor Ward? And could you get somebody at the major league level to help you turn the franchise narrative around? What do you say?
I think if you trade Taylor Ward now, you trade him for the franchise narrative turnaround. If you trade Taylor Ward at the trading deadline, you pull a Carlos Estevez to the Phillies type of trade. Because if you're trading Taylor Ward at the trade deadline, you're probably not competing. You're probably not in it, right? And Taylor Ward is going to be a valuable piece for a team that needs a valuable piece, for a team that's making a playoff push, needs an extra bat. So I think that if the Angels are trading Taylor Ward, they have to think about this offseason, how we're going to compete right now. We suggested Alec Boehm, but if they can get a pitcher, I think that's the best move. But if they wait and head into the season with Ward, then if he gets traded, he's getting traded at the trade deadline, then I think that you go for future pieces. You go for 26, 27, 28 pieces that could come up that maybe haven't come up yet, like Altaguiri, like a Clausen. Having those pieces in your minor leagues that are just on the precipice of coming up, I think that would be a really smart move by Perry Manasseh.
Teams get a little more desperate around the trade deadline too. So if you need an outfielder to hit you, 10, 12 home runs before the season's out, that might be a good time to trade Taylor Ward as well.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully, bringing you a daily blend of humor and baseball and keeping you updated on every rumor and every story throughout the offseason. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, find today's episode, get in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
There's a great article by Sam Blum with The Athletic about Sal Fasano, and he asks some really good questions. He asks, first, Fasano was brought in to be an assistant pitching coach. Why'd they do it? What does he add? And how will it fix the Angels' strike throwing issues? That was the question that actually caught my attention. So we're going to walk you through that article and share our thoughts tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right. We hope you'll come back and join us for that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
Well, I got rid of Patrick Sandoval, so that helps with the strike throwing issues, right?
The percentages just went way up.